Hey, it's Nick Fundytus from Royal LePage Performance Realty. And this week on Nick Answers Reddit, the question is kind of a cool one. Is it safe to buy a condo built in the 1800s? Um, it's not something that most people are looking at buying it most of the time. So this is an interesting one. So user Bramptoner here asks, so in terms of structural integrity and health risks with the materials, chemicals involved, would it be safe to buy one? So he's seen a couple listed, and he or she has seen a couple listed, and it's tempting given how cheap they are. Should I expect a lot of future repairs to be needed? So my answer here is that there's a lot to consider with an old condo like this, and I couldn't tell you the history of condominiums in Canada, but it is unlikely that this property was built as a condo in the sense that we think of it now, or a strata, you may call it in different parts of the country. That wasn't an owner like a type of ownership that was I don't even know if it was used at all when this condo would have been built, but it was probably converted from another building over time. So it may be something where it was a rental building at one point, or some other purpose, or even a factory or something like that. And then it was converted into residential use, where owners could own individual units, and eventually it turned into a condominium. So there's some sort of common operating of the common elements. So first of all, I get the temptation of this one where the property is cheap. It seems like it's cheaper than other properties that are the same size or similar size. Often these old condos have a little bit larger layout than a new condo. I mean, it's almost like a meme at this point with how small new build condos are, because the developers trying to maximize the amount of profit they can make out of the parcel of land that they're developing. But there's two ways to look at a property like this. So important things to decide if you decide to move forward. The first one is to say, as someone else has said, GTA Home Guy in these comments, the building is going to have a lot of construction practices that aren't up to code anymore. So these could be things like old wiring, insulation that's not as good, types of masonry, and there could be building materials that can cause health hazards. So asbestos, lead paint, all those kind of things. So you're taking partial ownership at least of these problems. So you have your own unit, which you own, plus any, your share of common elements. So if there's something that needs to be remedied in the common elements, or you've got a building and the old boiler breaks down and has to be rebuilt, I mean, these are all things that you're taking on as an owner. On the other hand, another way to look at this is that this is a condo that was built in the 1800s. It's a building built in the 1800s. And if it's in good physical shape now, I mean, that says something about the construction for it. It's still standing, which is not something you can say about a lot of homes that were newer than that. Since it's condominium, the other thing is it's very likely that this has had periodic, regular reviews in Ontario. This is required, and it's likely required in all the other provinces, I would guess, under provincial law. But your mileage may vary here. And it has at least some upgrades to comply with insurance requirements, because insurance, unlike building code, does not allow you to doesn't get grandfathered in. So if you build something that's not up to code in the 1900s, you do not have to upgrade it to comply with building code as you go on. It gets what's called grandfathered under the law. But insurance, because insurance always has to comply with whatever the latest insurance regulations are. Otherwise, an insurer can deny you coverage. That's their right as a private business. Then the building would have been upgraded over years in the parts where an insurer would be worried about it. So in other words, somebody has been paying attention to this building over the years, and they've been at least doing the minimum to comply with those insurance and things like that, and whatever engineers review to make sure that things are keeping up to code. Remember that the owners of this unit don't want things to get too terribly expensive either, so there's a certain amount of preventative and remedial maintenance that's being done on the building too. So in other words, you're buying something that has at least stood the test of time. I would say, I mean, if you go in there and the floors are level and they're in good shape, I mean, it shows something about the workmanship, and has had more attention paid over it over the years than a freehold property would. Because remember, with a freehold home that was built in that era, at least in Ottawa, they're notorious for having all kinds of do-it-yourself work that was done over the years. It's not documented. A lot of it you can't see, is plastered over. You don't know what kind of paints have been used and stuff like that. Whether asbestos was installed or something else that's health hazard. So the record keeping on them is very poor as well. So I would say at least with a condo, you have a certain amount of due diligence that's been done by the owners currently. Now, if you decide to move forward, there's 4 conditions that I would strongly, strongly recommend putting in here. I'm not your realtor. I mean, put whatever you want in it. But if I was your realtor, these are the things I'd be telling you to do. So number 1 is financing. So not every lender is going to underwrite a condo of this age. So especially if it has certain hazards like asbestos. And so have your financing condition in there, and at least gives you an out if you find some things that are going to make you have either huge cost to finance or not financeable. Second is inspection. This one's kind of a no-brainer. You need to have a good inspector go in and do a really thorough look at the unit. And I would encourage them to look at the building as well. If you can find somebody with an engineering background, this is a really good place to start. If you happen to be looking in the National Capital Region, I mean, I have some names I can give you there too. Or you can go to our website and you can look at those. Insurance. So somebody has insurance on this property right now. So either the owner of the building or the owner of the unit if it's being resold. But make sure that you can also get insurance for it. Insurance is really good to call right away as soon as your offer gets conditionally accepted, because then they are going to provide you with the questions that you need to find out in order to get the property insurable. And then status docs, or in some parts of the country, they're called strata docs. And this just means for a condominium, you're ordering that whole bundle of documents. It's all of the financial records, it's the rules. If there's been an engineering review, that's usually the results of that are attached. And everything else that they kind of know about the condo and that's documented. These aren't provided by the seller necessarily. So, I mean, they're provided by the condo corporation, which means that there's a certain amount of impartiality. They don't care whether you buy it or not. Make sure you have time to get these to your lawyer and review with your lawyer during the conditional period so you have a really good handle on what you're buying. Don't be scared away necessarily from buying an old property like this, but make sure that you're really doing your due diligence. Good luck on the purchase. If you decide to step forward, I think these kind of old buildings are really cool, and I think they have a lot of character. And one nice thing about them is that they tend to be in interesting places in the city where a new buyer might want to be. There's a little bit more life in the communities around these than you might find out in the suburbs, where you've got a whole bunch of same color freehold homes in a row with their garages out front. So there you go. The source for my knowledge on this is that I'm a realtor in Ottawa, Ontario. And if you have any other questions, I love answering them. You can reach me directly. You can put a post on Reddit and I might answer it, or you can find me on our website. Cheers.